right, good morning, good afternoon, or evening, as you might be watching this 24/7. So I'm very excited. My name is Cindy Immonen. I am a certified land title professional as well as a national land title professional from the American Land Title Association. And today, the Commercial Board of Realtors, thank you, has asked me to present the complexities of e-recording. I'm sorry, eClosings, which is part of e-recording. But the complexities of eClosings, the RON, the IPN, the e-signing, all these different items that you're being asked possibly by a lender, hopefully, by a seller, by a buyer, to help them out with, or asking them to want to sign this way instead of coming into your office. Many buyers and sellers are now going to be driving this change, as well as the lenders. We're all kind of still sitting by the sidelines, waiting for lenders to really engage into the e-signing, e-notarization. And I'll go through all of the details as to why they have not just jumped in yet. And so you're going to probably get more requests from your sellers and buyers asking to electronically sign instead of coming into your office, coming into the bank. As we might know, there was the typewriter back in the day, and we have moved forward in technology. So it's promoting it and utilizing it. So as you might know, we are going to be moving, and the move has already started from this traditional wet signing at the closing table to digital closing. The move has already happened with applying for a loan. The move has already happened for e-signing the agreements, your purchase agreements, your listing agreements, and different things of that nature. So the move is happening. The e-closing part is kind of like the last piece, having still this physical meeting for signing. And some of you will already know that it's going to save time by having an e-closing. It's going to save time from people coming to meet you and having a closing on a certain date. It's going to certainly save money, maybe not at first, because there's some technological changes, things that have to get put into place, some investments that have to happen. So at first, might not seem like it's saving money. In the long run, the change will save money. It's going to empower your borrowers. It's going to certainly empower your sellers. And believe it or not, this e-signing notarization is going to actually reduce risk. At first, you're going to say, how is it going to reduce risk? Because all I keep hearing about is be cautious out there with the e-wires and the email and the scammers and the hackers and the ransomware. And we're going to touch on that at the very end. But the e-signing, e-notarization component truly will reduce risk. And we'll go through those details as to why I'm going to tell you right now that it will reduce risk on the fraud side. And of course, it will just streamline everything. So when you're having a seller sign in your DocuSign system or your .loop system, it can carry through. Not on those two systems yet, but it's close on DocuSign. I'm here to tell you it's close on DocuSign. So that will be exciting to have e-notarization there. So let's go over the choices that we have as of today. Yes, as of today, we have these choices to put together a closing in the traditional wet form, and that even includes so of course, it includes people coming to your office, people coming to a title company to do the closing. It includes a title company sending a mobile notary, a mobile closer to the closing, or the mail-aways, as we call it. The title company prepares all the documents, puts it in overnight, and mails it away. Your client, the seller, buyer needs to find a notary, gets everything done, sends it back. So we call that a twin, the traditional wet ink notary. Then in our other box, we have the eSign hybrid. You might already be seeing a little bit of this out there at your closings. They're also called maybe a thin package from the lender. But the hybrid closing is some e-signing and some wet signing. And we'll go through that a little bit more in detail as to why certain documents are so important to be wet signed if the technology is not built for those certain documents. So basically, somebody has kind of stood back, parceled out the whole closing package and said, okay, this can be e-signed, these need to be wet signed. And then what you will be seeing, and it has not really reached the closing room close to you yet, it is happening in some out-of-state closing rooms, is called IPEN, in-person electronic notarization. This is happening at some closings where everyone still meets in person because, you know, the past year, we all kind of, you know, year and a half really kind of missed that, right? So we all kind of come together in the closing room. However, everything is e-signed with your little mouse. The little mouse thing is going to put a signature on the document. The little finger to the mouse pad is going to put a signature on the document. This is in-person e-signing, in-person e-notarization. It's going to be a great concept, has not taken off yet. It reduces paper, ink from the copiers, ink from the printers, so forth and so on. It's kind of going green, right? You're not chopping down a tree to get a closing done. It can be done today. If a title company takes the time to get all up and going, it can be done today. So, real estate agents, don't be shocked if you start to see it. Might not be this year, but it is coming. So know that. Then our last choice is what everyone talks about, is the RON. What is RON? RON is this remote online notarization. This is when the signer, seller, borrower is somewhere else. Somewhere else. They could be in Michigan. They could be in the same town as the notary in Michigan. Or they could be out of country. They could be in another state. They can literally be anywhere, providing the technology works. Got a little glitch there. During all of the COVID times, I think some of us in the title world has found out that the internet doesn't work so great in other countries. We've had some e-notarization that's happened with some US citizens that have been in China, and China's not so great with their internet, a little controlling. So that is the key. And I'm going to go over the details so that you have some heads up on why it all just doesn't happen and why you need to have the planets all line up to have a successful remote online notarization. So you might hear a title agent say to you, how about we have this one document or these two documents signed via RON, and then the rest, you know, signed one of the other three ways. Okay, so many choices, not just the one box still of choices under the traditional wet signing notarization. So let's talk a little bit about the hybrid. As I said, certain documents are going to be requested to be wet signed. What a bummer, right? Well, part of it is the note, and we're going to go over more in detail as to why the lender is going to need the note to be wet signed. It cannot just go through e-signing, such as a DocuSign or a .loop or the Adobe. There's a variety of e-signing platforms out there. But the note cannot be signed this way. And then the mortgage and the deed, well, you got eNotarization or notarization. And so there's some complexity there on the notarization part, and then of course the recording part. So that is why those big three are pulled out possibly and wet signed. Now, as I talk about e-signing, know that Michigan legislation adopted the UITA, that's what we call it for short, and this has been in place for, 21 years now. It doesn't seem that long ago that we had Y2K, but 22 years ago. So we go to the store today and we just e-sign our signature. We go to the gas pump. We might not even sign, right? So know that e-signing is a-okay, and you're possibly having your listing agreements e-signed, your purchase agreements e-signed. It could be your operating agreement. Many different, agreements can be e-signed, not a note. Keep in mind, not a note. So I put a little overview in here regarding the e-signing. Contracts on paper, they can be e-signed, pen and ink signatures, e-signatures, and then any other legally required written documents can have an e-form. And a lot of you are probably already used to this and possibly taking advantage of this section already. Now, during COVID, the governor and our legislatures went to work to assist the notarization component. So it was actually the family law section of the bar that put together kind of an emergency set of language that became, first it was kind of an executive order, and we all know how this all went down, right? And then it became statute. And now it has expired. Now, will it come back in the fall of 21? I'm not sure, it might. But right now it is totally expired. And what they did was they allowed notarization via computer. And so what it said was, okay, notary, you can overnight or get the documents to the signer, and then you can watch them via a computer. Kind of like right now, you're watching me through Zoom. Well, we're recording through Zoom. So it would be watched by the notary, the signer would sign, it would get recorded similar to today, and then you can rewatch it like you are. And so then the notary had a visual recording of the signatures. When they got the originals back, they would slap their notary on, put some language, and it was recordable, okay? And it was also valid in the court of law. That's no longer right now. It was good for a little more than a year, but it is no longer. So I still get questions, hey, can we do it this way? Nope. The real-time audio visual notarization is no longer. Now let's flip back to the note. I told you about URETA and how awesome it is to have all these contracts signed electronically, except for the note. So our notes are kind of like it's a security agreement. It's not kind of, it is. It's a security agreement, and it's a promise. It's a very strong promise. And obviously, the larger the dollar amount, the more stronger and more crucial it is. So within the lender's world, they need to purchase and set up with a vendor a system called an e-vault. Just as my diagram has a vault there with the note kind of sliding in, the note is electronically signed inside the e-vault. And the note actually becomes this e-vault document. And the lender then can sell it, they can register it and sell it through MERS. It's very important in the residential world for the secondary market for the notes to be sold. Of course, some smaller commercial loans are sold out there in the market. So the investors aren't quite up on board with all of this yet. Fannie and Freddie have been. I know that other federal housing lenders are getting there. And so we are going to see a lot more adoption of the buying of the e-vaulted note. And when we start seeing this over the next few years, and there's going to be a lot even just in the next year, we're going to see a lot more lenders jumping into the game. Okay? Because right now, when a lender has a note signed this way, and if they're not able to sell it, they're going to have some hesitation. Plus, it does cost some money. It does cost at least starting around $50,000 for a lender to get up and going on an eVault platform with a vendor. So this is why some of the lenders have not jumped in. This is kind of a whole diagram in the residential world and the smaller commercial dollar amount world as to what happens to that note out there. So this is just to keep you informed as to why the note today has to be wet signed. Even though it's not getting notarized, it needs to be wet signed. So let's move on to the in-person electronic notarization as well as the remote online notarization, the iPen and the RON, the using of the e-notarization with the e-signing. So Michigan amended its laws back in 2018 to allow the notary to be done electronically, simply as our signatures are done electronically commonly today. So as a notary here in Michigan, you can traditionally notarize with pen and paper. You can in-person electronically notarize, and you can remotely notarize. Now, there's some details in order to do that. So as I was telling you before, the iPen closing, the in-person, everybody's meeting at a location, the signers and the notary, not necessarily your sellers and your buyers, whomever is signing that you are notarizing. So usually it would be the sellers, and then a separate meeting would be for the buyers. So it would be still in person. You're still going to meet with people, and you're going to have a computer in front of you, and the signer will log in, the notary will log in, and everyone will be e-signing. And it will be recorded and so forth. And so it's in person still. People can ask questions. You can have interaction. You can find out, information about the property, possibly more in detail. But again, it's paperless. The documents are emailed to the buyer. The documents are emailed to the seller. The documents are emailed to you, the real estate agent. It's all paperless. Now with RON, the remote online notarization, this is being done via a use of audio-visual technology, approved technology, and we'll go through that. There's a lot more details here for doing the remote part, and the in-person has to be through an approved technology vendor as well. So when that notarization is happening, the signer is going to be somewhere else. They could be in the state of Michigan. They could be out of the state of Michigan in the United States or in another country. They can be somewhere. They do not have to be within our state lines to notarize their signature, which is really nice. Some states have some restrictions, so that's why I'm saying our laws is a little bit nicer there. So this leads me to be talking to you about a lot of different terms and, of course, some different thoughts when you're putting together your closing with your title company. And that would be talking about an e-closing room, an e-session where the signer and the notary are meeting electronically, and making sure that your customer, your seller buyers are okay with e-signing, and explaining to them that the notary will be e-notarizing. And then, of course, that the documents are going to be e-recorded. And then does the lender have the eNote eVault set up? If not, that's going to be wet signed. So then does your parties, are they wanting to do this? Are they comfortable with doing this in person, or are they going to be somewhere else, another state or something? So it's making sure that you work through these new terms with your buyers and sellers and your lenders and title companies. Also, there's going to be a consent. The consumer signer, be it an entity, has to consent to this e-signing, e-notarization, e-delivery concept. There's going to be 2 of them actually signed. So when the title company is issuing both policies, and what I'm referring to is the owner's policy and the lender's policy, so you're not having what's called as a split closing, the title company will almost be handling it internally as a split, because if the sellers are electronically signing, they're going to have one meeting with the seller, and if the buyer is electronically signing, they'll have a meeting with the buyer. It won't be an electronic closing together, even if the sellers and the buyers are both agreeing to e-signing and e-notarization. It won't be electronically together. It's going to be 2 separate e-sessions for the signing. In fact, it can be multiple. So if you have multiple sellers, you could have one seller e-sign because they're sitting in Arizona, and the other 3 sellers come in and wet sign. So it can be any kind of combination. Keep that in mind. Also, with these platforms, the notary and the closer might not be the same person. Kind of a different thought, right? When you walk into a closing today, that closer is the notary, right? So on the e-signing, notary portion, it could be a vendor's notary. The title company is a person coming into the e-session as a closer to answer any kind of questions and describe some of the documents, but they're not doing the notarization. A little bit different, but it's going to be okay. So some things that have to be put into place at the title company are things like getting the staff trained, updating their E&O, and if you're a notary, you need to get your E&O updated. You're going to have to work with a platform vendor to do this type of notarization, and then of course getting trained on that platform. If they're dealing with contracted notaries, they're going to have to get trained. And of course, it's a different agreement between that contracted notary closer with the title company. So there's a lot of different details that have to happen. The notary has to be updated with our Secretary of State. That would be the notaries must fill out the form with the SOS, Secretary of State. Equipment updating needs to happen. It can't be done just on older computers, like updated, like new computers today. It has to have a camera, an audio portion. A lot of title companies don't have computers with cameras. Your consumers don't have computers with cameras, okay? So some stuff needs to get updated in order to accommodate it. Here in Michigan, the platform vendors are approved, and know that the platform vendors are all different. They all have their unique technology and marketing and business development scheme, right? They all work a little bit differently. Michigan state law requires that the platform have the video conferencing recording tool, that it has this knowledge-based authentication for the signer to answer, and then it has this credentialing analysis to analyze the identification of the signer. And then it has, of course, the electronic signature component with the notarization. After the signatures are placed on the document, there's this tamper seal that's placed on the signatures so they cannot be fraudulently produced out there. And it also keeps the notary's journal. So it's key to understand from a title company component who the platform's going to be, who they're going to pick for the seller side. the lender is going to pick on their side. And if the lender doesn't, then the title company will certainly pick one of the vendors. So currently, some of the popular vendors out there is like Notarize, Pavaso, Nexus. There are currently about 12 vendors approved with our Secretary of State. And as I was saying, these vendors have a different platform. They're approved by the state with the core things there, but the platform maybe only does in-person notarization. And some platforms only do remote notarization. Well, that doesn't give you much flexibility, right? So it would be wise for a title company to use a vendor that can accommodate both if they want to move into the in-person notarization. Also, again, as I was telling you, some of these platforms bring their notaries. So now the title company is not the notary, they're only the closer. So that's kind of a difference in our world. So the title company is going to be spending money to get on board with a vendor. And they've got to take a lot of things into consideration for which vendor they're going to be investing in building their closing notarization system in. And the lender might look to one of these vendors as well, because some of these vendors do hold the e-vault component, which would be really nice, because now your buyer is only going to be in one platform. Sign the e-note, sign all the documents that have to be e-signed, sign all the documents that have to be e-signed and e-notarized. So it's kind of nice to have it all in one. So some of the lenders have already taken a look at that and started to move that way. Also, the title insurance underwriter needs to be comfortable with this platform vendor as well. So when a title company tells you, well, I would love to use that system, but it's not approved by my title insurance underwriter, you might hear that down the line as more and more get approved with the Secretary of State here in Michigan. So as I was telling you, the platform vendors have to have this KBA technology. So what this is the signer has to set up an account, hopefully before closing, because it could be complicated. They set up an account. They have to answer they have to answer 3 correct out of 5 questions. And these are questions such as, what color was your car, or what type of car did you have in 2002? What street address did you live in or at in 2010? So some of you have answered these questions before. You probably didn't realize that you were going through this KBA method, but it's a way to identify yourself. This is the reduced risk factor as to who the signer is. And then also they have to upload their identification and it gets analyzed to be valid identification. The notary, to do such a type of a notarization, needs to fill out forms with our Secretary of State and have them filed in order to be an in-person or remote or both notary. So in order to do that, the notary fills it out, mails it into the Secretary of State. You, the real estate agent, might be concerned if your consumer, seller, buyer are using an approved notary. So you can simply look it up at the Secretary of State notary site, and you will see if they have filled out the forms and have registered themselves. I've already done that, and so you can see here that I'm already an electronic and a remote notary. I was telling you earlier, our state law actually requires you as a notary to have a consent signed by the signers, okay? So the signers are going to be signing 2 consents. One is going to be that vendor platform. The other one is going to be the title company notary's consent, okay? So what are they consenting? Well, they are consenting that they understand that they're going to be e-signing, their signature will be notarized. They hopefully are consenting to the e-delivery of the documents, cut down on all that copying, right? And the key to follow the statutes is that they're consenting to have the audio visual recordation happening. When that happens, those platforms have to keep the signing and notary for 10 years. Yeah. So the consumer is consenting to this. Okay. So you might want to run that by your signers, sellers, buyers, if you're going down this path, because some people get a little funky about having their signing be taped and stored. And then the last, not really the last, sorry, but another key, a big key is the e-recording. Okay, so the title agent can help you with all of this. Is the property in an e-recordable county? Okay, yes, it is. Yay. Next question. Is the document that's going to be e-signed and e-notarized e-recordable? So within the county that allows e-recording, they have the rights to say, I'm not going to e-record a warranty deed. Well, that's what I was going to have signed and e-notarized, so that's problematic. The next problem could be is if the document is the warranty deed document is going to have a transfer evaluation affidavit stating that the deed is $1 and there's an attachment to the deed. Some e-recording counties do not e-record those. Problem. All right, well, I got an answer. The Michigan Electronic Recordation Commission last year put in a whole paragraph regarding what we call papering out. Papering out, yes, great. So what that means is that the e-signing will happen, the e-notarization will happen, and at the title company, they will print the document, put in a certification on it, walk it over to the county, and get it recorded. So the title company will help you out with this big detail before offering to your buyers and sellers signers if they can e-sign, e-notarize, because you've got to iron this out a little bit ahead of time just to make sure there's not going to be a problem. Because that's the last thing in the world we all want is to have a document re-signed so it can get recorded. I want you to have happy sellers, happy buyers, happy lenders, right? Also, your signers need to have identification. Not a big surprise. At the closing table, there's always going to be identification. However, the vendors are a little bit more strict on this than the title companies and the title underwriters. So this is a list of what is acceptable forms of identification. So you just want to make sure that they have proper identification ready. They'll need it at the time of setting up their account on the platform, and then they'll need it the day of closing. So, as you can see, as the stars line up and you have techie clients, this could be a great option for your closing. Again, you want to make sure you kind of have techie clients. Some of these platforms are not so consumer friendly. Some of them have now been able to work through the securities of the Apple iPad, and now those are acceptable documents, as I have on my screen here, a laptop with a webcam, internet, yada, yada, yada. So you want to review with your signers, you know, are they going to have all this technology available the day of signing, the day of what could be closing, right? They have to have private internet. They can't be just running through the airport, set aside and use the airport internet, okay? You know, you want to talk them through this because these are things that over the past year, I have had feedback from title agents on as to how their RON closing crashed and burned, okay? So you want to just prep your signers, sellers, buyers on this. And then also, before offering it, you want to know that, and this is really good news for your world, residential is A-okay, but also is commercial, 5 million or less. If it's over 5 million, there's going to possibly be some title underwriting issues. Now, that's a case by case. You would want your title agency to reach out to their underwriter and get an A-okay for over 5 million. The title commitment needs to be updated a little bit. That's just something technical on our side. It shouldn't be any issue on your side. And then also, who's the notary going to be? As I said, the platform companies sometimes have a notary. You want to check them out, make sure they're all set with our state, and they should be. So the title company is also going to be working with the lender to make sure the lender is all warm and fuzzy about the seller signing electronically with eNotarization. And then, of course, is the lender fine with it? And if the lender is fine with it, they might be picking the platform, or they're going to have the title company pick the platform. Again, that's stuff done behind the scenes. You might get involved with it a little bit, maybe not. But again, it's making sure everyone's all on the same page and who the vendor's going to be, if the lender's fine with it or not, and what's going to still be wet signed. So how does this look as you get closer to this closing process? Well, one is the signer's going to receive that link to set up their account on the vendor's platform. The documents will be uploaded by the title company, not the lender, sometimes maybe the lender, but mostly the title company. And then the signer has an option to review them ahead of time. If they do this, it will make step 3 much faster. So when it gets to step 3, Friday at 4 o'clock, everyone signs in, and the signer sets, shows their identification again. It gets credentials, put into place. And so then everyone, is going to sign. If the signer has already reviewed the document, they're going to click and their signature, e-signature goes on everything. If they haven't reviewed it, the notary is going to go through each document, just like we do at closing today in person. They'll go through each document and they'll get signed with a click of a mouse or a finger signature. It's all videotaped and stored in the platform. So here also is kind of a higher overview of the whole transaction. The logging into the platform at the beginning is the title company. They're going to tag the documents similar to how they're tagged in DocuSign or DocLoop. That upper corner picture there with the 2 people, that's really how it kind of looks. One thing to note, it's going to be the signer and a notary. It's not, attorneys are not allowed in usually. Very rarely are they. And then you, the real estate agent, are not allowed in. Loan officers are not allowed in. It's a pretty secure electronic site. Again, it's the reducing of the risk here. So everything's signed. You get funding authorization. The note goes in the vault. The e-recording happens. The e-delivery of all the documents then will happen by the title company. They're going to make an e-file for the seller, for the buyer, for the listing agent, and for the selling agent. And they'll go through and send the documents back to the lender as well. Now, some of these documents are some trailing follow-up documents, which is the principal residency exemption if it applies, and the property transfer affidavit. A lot of the municipalities out there in the state of Michigan will not take an e-signed copy. Yeah, kind of a bummer. So that document might have to get wet signed by your seller or buyer when they get to the municipality. If you are taking care of this document for them, I would triple check with the municipality that they are going to take a copy, okay? Because when everything is e-signed and emailed out, what you have are e-copies. If the municipality will not take it, run over to the seller, the buyer, get it signed, and then get it over to the municipality, because they're still being a little sticklers about copies. So think green, right? Less paper, and it can help through our whole closing process. If you have any questions regarding e-notarization, e-signing, you can always reach out to me, and also what the current law is at the moment of your question. So as we talk about all this e-signing, e-notarization, e-closing, emailing, what do we think about? Cybersecurity, right? Out in the cloud, the ransomware, are my emails secure, all that type of stuff. It's a big, big, big concern. I cannot caution you enough, but I will tell you, as you hopefully learned, that the e-notarization, e-signing has a lot of risk preventions in there through the vendors. Yay, right? Now, what I want you to realize is that fraud in our industry, they have a big playbook out there, and they will watch you out there, and they will create your profile, they will phish you, they will get into your access, so forth and so on. It's pretty scary what those fraudsters can do. Know that every single person is a target in the whole transaction. The lender, the listing agent, the selling agent, your buyers, your sellers, everybody is a target, and certainly the title company too. Even attorneys that are involved in the transaction. Attorneys have not upped their game a lot in this world, and so you really want to be cautious. Title companies have really upped their game in watching all of this and try to protect your buyers and sellers' money and your money, right? Your money, for sure. So no, everybody is a target. I'm sure you've heard this. Every single person is a target. The email is the primary conduit to it all. You get an email with some type of phishing in it, some type of malware, some type of ransomware in it. You might even be getting some type of email which allow them to just watch what your emails are and monitor them and see what's going on in the background. And they get the name of the title company, they get the name of the attorneys, and then they start targeting them. They target your sellers, they get into your sellers' emails and buyers' emails. And this is a true number here, $6 billion in losses. Crazy. Every day I hear about this as the title underwriter for the state of Michigan, every day. So this is why title companies are so cautious about where are they wiring the money to, who gave you the wire instructions, who is this seller, who is this buyer. They want to know more about your clients than ever before to prevent any type of attack, okay, and any type of intervention of the money going somewhere, okay. The compromises are happening every second. So you've got to be extremely cautious about your emails. Everybody in the ecosystem of our real estate transactions, commercial or residential, are a target. And when one is penetrated, the whole circle is then penetrated. People are our weakest link. We as humans, we make mistakes and click on stuff. And so we've got to continuously talk about it within our offices and among ourselves to make sure that we're keeping this top of mind. You've got to protect your connection. You've got to update, protect your passwords, and use multi-factor authentication. And yes, I know it's a pain. I live with it every day, but you got to do it. So your connection. Please stop using free Wi-Fi. Do not ever use free Wi-Fi. Even if you are in a rush and you go and work at a Panera. Hey, I did it yesterday. I work remote. I stopped at a Panera and had some lunch and got some emails done. Do not use free Wi-Fi. Make sure you are on your private Wi-Fi, your hotspot, or stronger yet, your VPN. Get a VPN for yourself instead of through your brokerage. It's really cheap, $6 a month. So you can get that. Update. So software is built, hackers learn all about it, and they are able then to infiltrate into your system. So when you get those notices that your software, your computer, your phone, your iPad needs to be updated, update. I know it can be a pain, sorry, but you got to do it. It's free to update. So make sure you're updating. Passwords. Do not share your passwords. Think about your passwords as underwear. I know it's a gross statement, but you're going to remember it, right? Don't use the same passwords. Don't share them. Don't use weak passwords. I see it all the time. Use a password manager if you need to. Use some type of unique password for every site. You can use a root. A root could be like, I like vanilla ice cream, and then for your Target account, you put Target, or BSNA, I like vanilla ice cream. Have a root and then switch it up a little bit for each of the different sites. For Marriott, for your bank, for whatever, have a different password. And then also, your family members, be cautious about having them share your passwords. Use a password management type of a system that can help you. LastPass is great. First password, 1Password is really good as well. Using the multi-authentication is awesome. So that is when you have a password and then you have to answer some type of question, or give like your thumbprint, your fingerprint, something of that nature. The two-factor authentication is when you get a text message, right, through your phone. Every time I log in, I get a text message and then I punch in that code. That is even as good and strong as well. So you want to set that up. That can be free. You can have your free Google Gmail account set up this way. If you have it set up this way and have other notifications, you're not going to have these hackers living in your Gmail account. So just think about that. You can use free Gmail and Yahoo, and if you want AOL, whatever you have, but set up the safety features so that the hacker dudes are not in your email, seeing what's going on with your transactions, right? So why? Well, we've already talked about all the money that's been lost, but on top of it, liability. You will be hauled into court and you will be possibly subject to paying out some money yourself. Not fun. So this is a list. We have here 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 cases. And this is kind of even an older list, probably about a year old, of cases where many parties have been found to be negligent, in breach of contract, your fiduciary duties. So be safe. Try and be safe. Be conscious of it. Try to set up some more safety things out there so that you're not losing money, paying people, and being hauled into court, right? That would be nice. And then do e-signing. Yay! All right. So again, my name is Cindy Immonen. I'm an NTP, CLTP, hopefully your solution provider. I am with Fidelity, Chicago Commonwealth. If you'd like to reach me, my email is here, my phone number is here. Reach out anytime. I'd love to chat with you about these topics and keep you safe and get you into the future of signing. Hope you have a great day.